Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be going over the next episode of PvP Beginnings, and in this episode we're going to talk about Pokemon that you're going to want for PvP, and the different types of Pokemon, we'll call them categories of Pokemon that you can get, and we'll start with the categories listed here below. And we'll start with Community Day Pokemon. So these Pokemon are a little different than just the average Pokemon that you're going to catch in the wild. So, for instance, Venusaur is at I think the most used and best Community Day Pokemon to have. And what I mean by differences between the Pokemon is that if you catch a Bulbasaur in the wild and you evolve him up into a Venusaur, he's not going to have that Community Day move, and for Venusaur, that Community Day move is Frenzy Plant, and without that Community Day move, it's going to be a far weaker Pokemon. So, let's go over just a few more Pokemon on this list. I think Umbreon is really good. He's going to have Last Resort, and then Charizard is going to have Blast Burn, and Swampert, which is a very recent Community Day Pokemon, is going to have Hydro Cannon. So, also a lesser used one is Tyranitar with the Fast Attack Smackdown. The only one on this list that the Community Day move is a Fast Attack. So these are a little harder to get. If you don't have them already, you can ask in your community to trade for them. Just make sure that their CP stays below 1500. Also, there's a Community Day coming up in December, and they haven't given out the details, but maybe if you get the first evolve form of these, or second evolve if they have them, maybe when that December Community Day comes around, maybe it'll be a Community Day of all the previous Community Days like they did last year, in which case when you evolve them, they'll get that move. So make sure to save the unevolved forms of these, just in case when December comes around, if they're doing it, you'll be ready. Another name for Pokemon that have movesets that you can no longer get, like Community Day Pokemon, is Legacy Pokemon. And so when people say they want a Legacy Pokemon, it means they want a Pokemon that has a move that you can no longer TM to get. And we'll talk about Legacy Pokemon in another video. For this one, we want to stay just in the broad spectrum of Pokemon. So let's go ahead and get into another one of the categories I have listed, and that is high-level Pokemon. So these are Pokemon that can reach a much higher level than the average Pokemon and stay under that 1500 CP cap. And these Pokemon, their limiting factor is going to be not necessarily rarity. Their limiting factor is going to be Stardust cost, because since they can reach that cap at a higher level, it's going to cost that much more Stardust to get them there. As we all know, when you level up, the Stardust cost increases. So I'm going to go through a list of them from what I think is the most lucrative. And that's going to be Azumarill. I think he's the best one on this list. And for most IVs, for most IVs, he can get to, I think, level 38, and there are some where he gets to level 40. So the next one on this list is Medicham. So Medicham is a Pokemon that at level 40, no matter what his IVs are, he will always be under 1500. So you'll be maxing him out no matter what. Next on the list is Bastiodon. So he's a little harder to find, but I think we've had a few events here. I think there was a ground event where Shieldon was a little easier to find. And I believe he gets to level 35 to 38. The next one is Wormadon Trash. He gets to level, I believe, 35 as well. And then the last one on the list is a little niche, but still pretty good, is Sableye. And Sableye is the same as Medicham, where he can get to level 40 and will always be under 1500. So you might not have a lot of Stardust, even though we just went through the Stardust event here, which was awesome. And if you don't have a lot of Stardust, there are always what we call side grades. And what a side grade is a Pokemon that isn't as good, but pretty much is similar, as in it has the same movesets, the same typing, so it'll do the same thing, it just won't be as good. And so let's go through a few of those. So I don't know if Azumarill has a side grade, unfortunately. That's why he's at the top of my list for Pokemon you should be seeking. And then let's go to Medicham. I think Hitmonchan has the exact same moves and is a fighting type. For Bastiodon, a good a side grade is Probopass. Basically, Bastiodon's role in a lot of the cups is that he's very tanky and is an anti-flyer. So Probopass being, I believe he's Steel Rock, is going to be good at that as well. So for Wormadon Trash, a good side grade is Forretress. In fact, I think a lot of people right now still use Forretress, although I believe Wormadon is much better. But like myself, I have never even encountered, or I can't even evolve anything into Wormadon Trash as of now. So another category we have up here is Legendary / Regionals. And these are going to be a little harder to get, not necessarily impossible to get, but just you got to do some work, right? So on this list I have Defense Form Deoxys, which no longer is in X raids or EX raids, but we just got an announcement that they are coming back in 5-star raids. All the defense or all the Deoxys forms. So if you can get yourself a Defense Form Deoxys from a raid, it's always going to be under 1500 when you get it, and then you can just power it up a few times. Next on the list is Raikou. So the trouble with Raikou is that you're going to need to get it below 1500. So when we had the box event where Raikou was coming out of the boxes for the 7-day daily quest completion, you would be able to get it under 1500. So if you trade with someone who got theirs from a box, it can go below 1500 CP. It's not necessarily going to happen 100% of the time, but if you do a few trades, it will definitely happen. In the same way, Cresselia, when she was a raid, you would you can't get it below 1500 because of the IVs, but once you trade it, those IVs can go down and it can go below 1500. It's a little bit more difficult than Raikou, but it can happen. And then Lugia is the last one on the list for legendaries, and it's the same as Cresselia. You're going to have to trade, or I guess it's similar to Raikou. You're going to have to trade someone who got it in a box because you need to get it below the 1500 CP. So the last category, or another part of this category, was regionals. I think the best regional by far is Tropius, and that's going to be hard to get if you know someone who went to, I believe it's Africa or southern Spain. They can help you with that, trading it to you. Hopefully it's under 1500, and then you can level it up with rare candy or walk it, whatever you need to do to get candy for it and get it up. The other regional that isn't used as much, but it has seen some play, is Heracross, which is going to be, I believe, between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn, which is around the equator. So the last category I have listed is highly used / obtainable Pokemon. So these are Pokemon that you probably see every day in the wild. Maybe not every day, but you know, they're more readily available than the previous Pokemon that I've listed out. And so since they are more readily available, you're going to have a higher chance of having these Pokemon or just getting them. And a lot of people have them, so you can trade with them if you want. So I'm going to go through a list of these, and going from what I think is the most highly obtainable, or what you should be looking to obtain first versus less so. So first one on the list is Altaria, which is an evolved form of Swablu. Skarmory. Probopass, which we listed earlier as a side grade to Bastiodon. Lantern. Toxicroak. Quagsire. Vigoroth. And we just had the event for the Community Day of what's its name? Slackoth. So you should have those. Whiscash, which we just had a community day for Swampert. So hopefully you have Swampert with Hydro Cannon. It's a little better version than Whiscash is in this case. And then there's Tentacruel, and lastly Gallade. So these are all the Pokemon that I think are really relevant, and if you get them, you're going to be doing pretty well. But there's a little more to it than just having the Pokemon under 1500 CP, right? So you may have heard me mention IVs earlier in the video. So if you don't know what this is, it's when you go to your Pokemon in your Pokedex, in your bag, and you click on a praise, and you see the bars fill up, and you see them go either not filled at all or all the way to the max, the 3 bars. Those are the IVs. They're just disguised, right? So what I mean by that is each Pokemon's stat for attack, defense, or stamina can be in a range from 0 to 15. So when you're trying to get good IVs for a specific Pokemon, more than likely in PvP, you're going to want 0 attack and then 15 stamina, or 14 or 15 stamina, and 14 or 15 defense. So a good way for you to figure, since all Pokemon are different, a good way for you to figure that out is a website called gostadium.club/pvp/iv, and I'll leave that link in the description. And what it is a site that lets you type in the Pokemon's name, type in what league you want it to be in, and then put in its IVs, and it'll show you a list of all of the best IVs and what your Pokemon's IV is and how good it is compared to the rest of the field. Now, how good do you want your Pokemon to be? Obviously, you want it to be higher in the rankings, but you won't always have the chance to get a perfect one. I know I don't even have any perfect PvP IVs Pokemon, but what you want it to be is just to be somewhat higher on the list. I think a lot of people have said pretty much if you get it to be so the last column in the Ghost Stadium PvP IV analysis sheet is percent of max stat. If that is at 95% or higher, you're pretty much not going to see that much of a difference between those Pokemon. Obviously, they're going to have a slight edge, but it might not matter that much. It definitely won't matter as much as the Pokemon you're actually using, right? So like I said earlier, with those Pokemon that were in the high level list, they're going to be a little different. They don't exactly go with this whole 0, 15, 15 being the best. They're going to be a little different. So like Medicham, you can be perfect. So you'd have 15, 15, 15 and still fall below that 1500 mark. And for Azumarill, I think the best one is 8 attack, 15 defense, 15 stamina, and we'll get to level 40. So a little bit of research if you want to go that hard into it, but like I said, if you're within 5%, it's probably not going to matter as much as the actual... I mean, obviously, it's not going to matter as much as the actual Pokemon you're using in a battle. So I think that's going to be it for today's video. I'll try to go more into all that extra stuff in the next video. Thanks for watching, everyone. And if you want to be the first one to watch that next video, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And thanks for listening.